1st, 2025 meeting, and we're beginning at 1:03 p.m. Make sure we're good to go. Moving forward. Okay. I believe our staff person, Brittany Bryant, is controlling our presentation remotely. So going to try to speak up a little bit more than usual and give a little lag time in case we need that. So before I get started into the meat of our meeting today, I'll just go over some audio tips for our virtual participants. For better sound quality, we strongly encourage you to download Zoom as the application on your device. You can click on the audio settings to bring up additional options such as adding background noise suppression, testing your speaker and microphone, and adjusting their volumes. For presenters or public commenters, if you're joining us remotely, when it's your turn to speak, you can mute or unmute clicking on the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. You can expand the menu next to the microphone to reveal additional options, such as selecting your speaker and microphone devices and testing them for volumes. And if you still have audio challenges, you can switch to phone for audio. At the beginning of each, well, first, before we get into that, we'll introduce ourselves as the commission. I'll begin. My name is Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant, and I was nominated by the community at large. Chris.
Yeah, I'm Christopher McGinnis. I am a forensic architect, and I was nominated by the mayor's office.
I'm Rusty Brown. I'm an architect and was nominated by the AIA.
I'm Nick Fusianis. I'm an architect and a developer, and I was nominated by the AIA as well.
I'm Larry Sykes. I'm an architect and I was nominated by History Colorado.
Emily Hazen, a preservationist and designer, nominated by City Planning.
Amy Amadon, representing Landmark staff. As noted, we also have Brittany Bryant on the call, and you all rely on her a lot to provide you background information when needed for these reviews, so she's there for you.
Great, thank you. So at the beginning of every meeting that we have, we invite members of the public to comment either about historic preservation in general or on design review agenda, business items or discussion items that we have on our agenda before us today. For those providing general comments about historic preservation, you have up to 2 minutes. And for those commenting on our agenda items, if you're not part of the presenter team, you have up to 3 minutes to provide those comments now rather than when we discuss each item in turn. So if you would like to speak, you can virtually either click your hand raise button in Zoom or by dialing *9 on your keypad. If you have trouble with that, you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number so that we can identify you as wanting to speak virtually. Are there any folks here today in person that would like to speak? Okay, thank you. Do we have any virtually?
No.
Okay, great. Then we can proceed with our agenda. The first round of things that we consider is our consent agenda. These are routine design review items recommended for the commission's approval without discussion. Applicants with these items passed on the consent agenda should coordinate separately with your landmark preservation staff to receive a certificate of appropriateness. There is no public comment for consent agenda items. So I'll announce the agenda by address. I'll ask the commissioners if they desire to remove any of these items from the consent agenda to speak more directly about them on our design review agenda. Then commission members will have an opportunity to announce any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest and recuse themselves if needed. Then we will consider a motion and vote on that motion. And again, if your project is approved, you may leave the meeting or you're welcome to stay with us for the remainder of it. So our consent agenda items are application number 2025-COA-130 at 375 North Gilpin Street. 2025-COA-135 at 3043 Mead Street. And 2025-TAXC-009 at 849 North Race Street. Commissioners, do you have any items that you would like to remove from this agenda item, consent agenda? No. Any ex parte or conflicts of interest? No. Okay, then we can entertain a motion. Yes, Nick.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Thank you, Nick. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Emily. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Great, the motion carries and the consent agendas items have been approved. That's nice and easy. Great, we will move on. We don't have any public hearing items today, so we will move on to our design review. We only have one project for us today. So I'll announce it by address. Commission members will have an opportunity to let us know of any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest. We'll hear from staff to introduce the application and their recommendation with a limitation of 10 minutes. Commissioners may question staff as needed. Then we will hear from the applicant, who has up to 10 minutes altogether to present their project. And commissioners may question the applicant after they're through. Staff will provide any clarifications if needed, and then the commission will move into deliberation and make a motion to vote. Thank you. Sorry, let me announce it. It is application, could you go back? Oh, no, I haven't. Application number 2025-COA-166 at 324 North Corona Street in the Alamo Placida District, and we'll hear from Jesse.
Okay, so this is 324 Corona Street, built in 1916. This is a contributing structure to the Alamo Placida Historic District. The commission previously reviewed an addition project and pergola and window alteration on February 18th, 2025. Individual commission member comments, they did vary. However, there were some consistent themes that did pop up during that deliberation. And those included the addition's height, the design elements and material articulation that better reinforce the main structure and windows. So the commission deliberation did not encourage this design to be overly traditional or exclusively modern, where it's starkly contrasted from the primary structure, but wanted something that, again, blended in and was subservient to that primary structure. Two commission members on the February 18th meeting were in full support of the application as presented. Next slide. Okay, so the applicant has submitted a revised application for review. Pictured here is a proposed site plan, floor plan, and roof plans. The proposed side addition will maintain the same footprint size as previously reviewed. And it will be the footprint will be roughly 20 feet, 10 inches by 32 feet, 5.5 inches. And it will project 16 feet from the side of the house on that south side of the house. Next slide. So pictured here are proposed elevation drawings. The applicant did reduce the height of the addition from 13 feet, 10 inches to 12 feet, 9 inches. And that's a difference of 1 foot, 1 inch. The applicant is maintaining the flat roof form, which the commission didn't have an issue with. But they are all maintaining that 1 foot, 5 inch fascia thickness and a 1 foot, 6 inch eave overhang. The addition roof will be clad in EPDM, and the fascia and soffits will be wood. The addition walls will be clad in hardy plank, artisan B groove siding, as well as brick veneer. The plank siding will have a reveal that has changed from the previous design, which was 4 to 8 inches in thickness, alternating, to 3 to 5 inches, alternating. So the applicant added a 3-foot water course with a soldier course cap that aligns with the foundation banding detail on the primary structure. This was something that was presented or recommended by the commission in the February 18th meeting. The proposed brick veneer will be a salvage brick material to match the historic foundation on the house. And the addition windows will be Sierra Pacific aluminum clad wood, single hung on the west elevation, double hung on the north elevation, and fixed clear story on the south and west elevation. They have eliminated the clear story windows on the east and north elevations from the previous design to help simplify it. And then the addition doors will be divided light Sierra Pacific aluminum clad wood doors. And the windows and doors, the product details do indicate that the applicant will be using simulated divided light units with a spacer bar, which was missing from the previous application. Additionally, the applicant has provided window section drawings for the addition, showing the windows will be inset a minimum of 6.5 inches to the lower sash. And then after reviewing the revised application, staff do have some concerns that the proposed addition does not fully meet the design guidelines or commission deliberations that took place on February 18th. Staff suggested motion is denial, but we've also included an alternate motion. And we did that primarily because when we make a recommendation for conditions, those conditions have to be very specific, clear cut, and easy to approve. And staff at the staff level couldn't develop very clear ones and hope that the commission would have the opportunity to discuss potential conditions that would be more clear cut in their deliberation. So I'm going to spend the next few slides kind of going over our concerns, how it doesn't meet the guidelines, and like past deliberation by the commission on the February 18th meeting. Next slide. So again, I'll start with covering commission comments regarding the height and the design detailing, and then I'll go over the staff's recommendation for that. So pictured on the left was the previous proposal, and on the right is the current proposal, just for reference, so you can see what has changed. So several commission members felt that the overall height of the addition was an issue. Nick stated that the flat roof form was fine, but believed that the height should come down. Rusty felt that the height was really a concern, but did not express concerns over other issues that were brought up in the staff brief. Emily stated that while the size of the addition was generally subordinate, it would be nice to get the addition a little lower because the addition was so visually dominant. And while the applicant did lower the height of the addition 1 foot 1 inch, the applicant did not fully address other commission concerns related to the relationship of the addition to the primary structure, particularly the roof's connection to the main house and the scale of the roof eaves. So commission members also expressed concerns with the lack of reference at the main structure. Emily thought that the design contrasted in architectural vocabulary and did not entirely meet the guidelines, Erica stated this. She pointed out specifically guideline 3.4E. Do not design an addition to contrast starkly from the original structure. At minimum, an acceptable design should be neutral and not detract from the district or the structure's historic context. Nick felt that the overall materiality should pick up more from the cues of the main structure. He went on to offer the example that it could better reference by adding in the water course with the soldier course at the foundation level that aligned with the primary structure's foundation. Chris commented that his biggest hangup was with materiality and that the designs were so contrasting that they appear to be two separate homes. And then finally, Emily felt that the design could be better integrated with a few reference elements from the main house. She noted that she didn't see much integration in the current proposal, going on to say that the style does not need to be replicative, but that it needed datum lines or some form of continuation across and more proportional references to the main house. We can move on to the next slide. So now we'll touch on staff's concerns with the current proposal. So we do appreciate the use of a brick water course and soldier course cap. We do feel that it draws from the Commission's comments and does help the foundation of the addition better align with the primary structure. We do still have concerns over the addition height portions of the roof eaves. Specifically, the roof eaves on the addition are 1.5 inches thick, and the clear story window headers is an additional 6 inches in thickness. While the fascia boards on the gable ends of the main house are 1.3 inches, and the eaves on the main house are 4 inches. And I have reference points, in that image to the right side. The difference in eave proportion draws the eye to the addition and gives it a top-heavy appearance with little relationship to the primary structure. Staff feel that if they were to reduce the scale of the eaves to 1.3 inches and the clear story header detail to 4 inches, closer alignment would be achieved between the primary structure and that addition. These minor adjustments would also help to slightly reduce the overall height of the addition, which was referenced as a concern by the Commission. And so we felt like it was a minimum alteration. So the overall reduction in height would be an additional 5 inches on top of the 1 foot, 1 inch reduction that's in the current proposal for a total of 1 foot 6 inches. And the overall height of that addition would be 12 foot 4 inches. And again, staff was really thought that they had done a great job to align the foundation, but as you look up towards the top of that addition, it just kind of starts misaligning again. And we'd just like to see better reference to that primary structure, which was pulled out from the Commission deliberation previously. Next slide. So next we'll move on to the addition window layout. And I'll start with the Commission comments again, and then move on to staff's recommendation. So the Commission members were not overtly opposed to the use of clear story windows or the window patterning on the structure during their deliberation on February 18th. Larry stated that the clear story was an interesting and contemporary reference to the half timbering gable end elements on the original house. Chris felt that the clear story windows gave the addition a more mid-century appearance that contrasted against the more traditional house. Rusty felt that the height could be pulled down and the clear story windows maintained. Emily did not reference the clear story windows specifically, but did state that the overall design could be better integrated with just a few reference elements from the main house. Staff are supportive of the Commission's deliberation on February 18th. Regarding the windows, but do have concerns over the window placement rhythms, particularly on the west elevation. Previously, the applicant hadn't included just a detailed elevation of the west elevation, but they did include that in the current application. We can move on to the next slide. So here on the left-hand side of the screen is that detailed west elevation. And staff's concerns are more around the west elevation, listening to what the Commission talked about on February 18th regarding the other windows on the other elevations of the addition. So our focus will be primarily on this west elevation. So staff's concerns center around the lack of coordination, of coordinated placement and rhythms on the west elevation. Of particular concern is the powder room cottage style window, which I don't know if you can see my mouse. Nope, you cannot. It's the window, the single hung window to the far left, closer to the main house. So we felt that that kind of creates this disbalance and lack of coordination between, you know, the cottage style windows there. The Landmark team did discuss several options that might allow the west elevation to have a better balance. Options that we talked about, and we don't want to limit, you know, because there's a lot of ways to approach alteration and achieving more or better balance on this elevation. But a couple of options that we talked about were to remove the clear story windows and align the headers of the cottage style windows, to remove the cottage style windows and keep the clear story windows, but move the cottage style windows so that the headers and sills better aligned. Keep the clear story windows and the paired cottage style windows, but remove the keep the clear story windows and the paired cottage style windows, but remove the single cottage style window in the powder room. And then when we were discussing option 3, the team felt that it might be appropriate to extend the clear story windows the full width of the west elevation, just so that there was better balance there. And again, like I said, there are many ways to approach this, and we don't want to limit that. On the right-hand side of this slide, we do have some of those options that were discussed. These were submitted on March 25th. Typically, we don't allow these types of alterations to applications that late past the filing deadline, but in this case, we felt that it would help to illustrate some of the options that staff had discussed and would help in deliberation. And then next slide. So we would like to note that our preference for the removal of the option that removed the clear story windows but kept both cottage style windows was that those headers better align. Again, there's more than one way to approach that as well. We do realize that there's probably some floor to ceiling height issues, and that's why there's certain or specific placement, because there is a step down from that powder room area to the bathroom next to it. But there are many ways that you could address that and achieve balance between those windows as well. And this is just a rough, obviously very rough illustration that I put together, showing more of what our proposal was, or recommendation was to the applicant. Next slide. So staff is recommending denial. Like I said, we just couldn't come up with very clear, clean conditions. So that is what the first motion is. It's just a straight denial. But there is an alternate motion. And of course, we showed you a few options that staff had discussed. We'd love to hear more deliberation from commissions to see if we can get to cleaner conditions potentially for this application, or maybe you feel it's fine as presented and you could recommend approval. However, we do have that alternate motion there that with a few sample conditions in place. We do stand firmly behind the first condition that the addition eaves be reduced to 1 foot 2 inches and the clear story window header be reduced to 4 inches. But there is some play on those last two conditions that I think could be fleshed out during deliberation.
Okay, thank you, Jessie. Before I ask commissioners if they have any questions, I just want to double check, because I think we kind of rushed through getting into this project, that we don't have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communication. Okay, thank you for making sure that's the case. So staff, do you have any questions for Jessie?
I think the answer, I know the answer, but just to confirm that the 1'2" eave dimension is the height of the eave, not the overhang.
If we can go back to, I think, my second slide. Nope. Actually, can you move forward? Forward again. Forward again. Here. So, you can see in the, upper right-hand image, the 1'2" is the distance, basically that fascia board that runs at the gable ends of the primary structure. The 4 inches references kind of the horizontal detail on the hipped roof portion of the structure. So those were the reference points that we were pulling from. These may not be exact. I pulled these dimensions from Bluebeam, so those would need to be or actually detailed out by physical site measurements, just to make sure there's better alignment. Thank you.
Any other questions? Right, I think we're ready to hear from the applicants. If you would begin with your name and
Anne Cuthbertson, the architect for the project. The owner, Nancy Van Cleve, is also here present.
and you have up to 10 minutes.
Perfect. I just wanted to summarize the changes that we did make. I hope and think that we addressed all of the comments from the commission's last meeting. And Jesse reviewed them, but just to, there were a couple of comments that were very specific that we think we've also addressed, and I just want to highlight those. We don't have to, Brittany, you're fine. We don't have to go back through the drawings for right now. One comment had been that someone was uncomfortable with how the siding just seemed to die off at the bottom. And so we're hopeful that the brick course will give the siding a more pronounced place to land at the bottom of the siding. The other thing that was in the submittal package, but I don't know that it was highlighted in the slides, is we did include some images. Someone had commented that they were having trouble visualizing what we meant by alternating the siding heights. And so we had pulled an image of another project that showed that. Brittany, is that something that you could bring up? It would have been in part of the photographs.
I unfortunately don't have that, but the commission would have it in their packet, Anne.
Okay. So it's probably the second to the last image that you have of the photographic part and the product information in your packages. And I don't know if you guys can find that now. That was just in reference to someone saying they had trouble visualizing what we were talking about with the alternating. I, in general, like to alternate the siding so it takes it away from, it's been so overused, particularly in suburban parts of town, that I find it gives a little bit more detail to an otherwise fairly commonly used material. But I wanna make sure that you understand the image that I included was the larger widths or heights, and we are talking, yes, thank you. We are talking about something more compressed than that. So we're talking about alternating 3-inch and 5-inch, which still courses out with the brick module that we were trying to work with before, but it just meets the guidelines more specifically in terms of that maximum height. So hopefully that image was helpful for people that were having trouble picturing that. I think that was more than one commission member wanted just to understand what we meant by that alternating height. There was a difference of opinion, I would say, last time in the comments that I heard in the windows stepping down in addition compared to the existing house. So one of the things that I want to say about the west elevation is, as you all know, those of you who are practicing architects, these are such an abstraction to do an orthographic projection like this. That's never how you are going to see a 3-dimensional object in space. So if we could go, Brittany, to the image that had the section that showed the entire west elevation. I think it's one more. No, sorry. Maybe one more, Brittany?
I paused your time. Again, I only have what Jesse put here in the presentation.
She showed it. Jesse showed it in the drawing that I'm talking about is a section through the main house that shows the entire west elevation of the addition. There it
Is
is. Yeah.
it this one?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna restart your time, or not restart it, continue your time.
So you can see the floor level of the main house in this section. And the sill of the powder room window, which is the furthest one on the left of the furthermost left image. That sill matches up with the kitchen window that's right around the corner from it on the main house. And so I think that would read very strongly when you are seeing the addition right in conjunction with the main house, that relationship, as well as the brick soldier course, would be carrying directly around the corner, 2 feet away from the existing window on the existing main house. And then I just want to, in my view, this west elevation, the proportions of that powder room window and the proportion then of the double windows, cottage hung windows at the main bathroom are exactly the size of the dining room windows and elsewhere on the house where there are typically the paired cottage hung windows. They're exactly the same width, height, proportion. And so I think, again, as you're seeing the south elevation of the main house in conjunction with this west elevation, those relationships will be very clear and easy to grasp, even for someone who's not, in the industry. In my view, the height of the clerestory windows then pick up again exactly with that height of the top sash of all of the cottage hung windows on the main house, and start to transition as, again, you'll see the west elevation of the addition with the south elevation of the addition from virtually any viewing angle. You'll see that corner. So then the clerestory window continuing around onto the south side, I think picks up that top sash of the cottage hung as it goes around to the south side of the addition, if that makes sense. And I do want to just address the 4 images that we sent were just my attempt to be sure that I was understanding the 4 options that staff were proposing as possible alternative views. It should be noted that my client doesn't like any of those 4, but it was just my effort to be sure I was understanding what they were saying in words with these 4 images. And I take it that was the 4 options that staff had recommended. And then Jesse pasted up the alternative one, which just won't work for either the powder room. It would put the sill of the powder room at the floor level of the powder room, and it would put the sill of the main double cottage hungs almost 4 feet above the floor of the main bathroom. So those would be very peculiar relationships from the inside of the house if we were to adopt what is suggested here. And I think that was, again, I think that we tried our best to respond to all of the comments from the commission from the last time. We are certainly very comfortable. It seems like an oddly specific recommendation from staff to change the heights of the header and the fascia, but we'd be fine with that if that's a condition of approval on the part of the commission. We would like to stay with the west elevation as we're proposing, and I think it does tie the proportions and heights of the main house as it wraps around the corner onto the west elevation, and then resolves it as it wraps around the corner on the south elevation of the addition. So that is what we hope is that west elevation as drawn.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Larry?
Yeah, I guess, if we didn't approve the west elevation as drawn, would you prefer to have that be the denial so that you have more creative latitude to respond to it? Or would you prefer the conditions listed knowing that you'd be constrained to keep this?
I think that my client would really like to move forward with this project, so our goal would be, to have approval with conditions. A fifth option that could be considered is the elevation on the west side, but having the powder room window head align with the windows of the bathroom, and it would by geometry would have to be a smaller window. But that I think would also be acceptable to Nancy, to have some type of window. In other words, can I go up? Yeah. That this window could drop down to be aligned with the head of this window, and then maybe it's just the top sash is the entire window. That would be acceptable.
Or even a smaller window, just.
Yeah, a smaller window, but something operable into the powder room, right? Somebody's phone. Jesse, is this yours?
Yes.
On the, your proposed west elevation,
Yes.
would you consider eliminating the northernmost clerestory pane and then moving the windows below that so that they align with the clerestory mullions?
Yes and no. The interior of that, those windows are right centered on a bathtub, which is centered on the whole rest of the bathroom. So it would be an odd loss on the interior to move the double windows.
Yes, Nick.
Refresh my memory, the last time you presented, were there more 3D renderings or some?
We
Because
did.
the only one I see in the resubmittal is within the materials board, and I think it's the dated rendering.
I did try to update the 3D model and I just ran out of time. So
I see.
it's true that we don't have
Because some of
updated
those
3D model.
details you got into that, saying that the two-dimensional drawings are abstract, we would
Right.
be able to perceive more simply rather
Agreed.
than rely on words. The tie between the two windows is they face each other at different elevations. Would you consider, I don't want to get into the, I still think personally that the fascia piece on the flat roof, I still like the flat roof as a fine answer. But I do believe that it's heavy for the structure, and that in itself makes it incompatible with the existing structure, given how it lightens up as you look up toward the roof of the house. Would you consider angling the fascia so that the profile in elevation would be a lot thinner? The shadows would cast a lot differently, but it would have a much more graceful, in my view. And this could arguably be a friendly comment, but I do think it is tied to the guidelines relative to compatibility. Is that something that you would consider instead of a vertical?
Within reason, we could look at something angled. Yes. Yes.
I don't know if my fellow commissioners agree, but I'm
That's
sure.
a question. Or do you mean angling the fascia, the vertical part, or do you mean angling the soffit so that it kind
Yeah,
of
the
comes
soffit,
up
right,
and then
I'm sorry.
thins out
Yeah,
the fascia?
just,
Okay.
yeah, however you want to term it, but yeah, so the fascia is shorter, right? And then the soffit is angled. Yes, thanks, Larry. Yeah, no. So if it's something that, and I don't, like I said, I could be standing alone here with that as a suggestion. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Jesse, do you have any recap or?
Yes, so Brittany, if we could go to that detail west elevation. So absolutely, staff, as we said, during our presentation, we do understand that there are issues with the floor to ceiling heights there and that there's a step down from the powder room into that main bathroom area. and that moving it in this way may not be ideal. And we also had mentioned in an email to the applicant that another option would be to keep the sill and header height of the paired cottage windows in the same location, but reduce the sash size for the powder room window, and align the header so that, again, you know, we're accomplishing the balance, we're accomplishing on that west elevation, and we're pulling from proportions on the existing house. We didn't have enough time to there's so many options that could take place here, that we didn't want to, spend a lot of time going through all of the potential options, and wanted to leave that up to commission deliberation. But that, as the applicant presented as a fifth option, would potentially be one that we would be supportive of as well. Again, I understand that the perception at an angle may be slightly different, but we don't feel like it will be so significantly different viewing it from the street. This is a highly visible elevation, even though it is kind of tucked behind that porch that extends out in front. It will still be visible. And we just felt in that previous iteration that it was kind of gave it a cluttered, disjointed appearance from the primary structure. And our recommendation overall was to create balance so that it pulled more so or was neutral to the primary structure, and also to create something within the window proportions, rhythms, and layouts that was simplified and not overly cluttered, as this is an addition that should recede out and not take visual prominence over that primary structure. So that was our thinking in making our recommendations.
How does staff feel about an angled soffit?
I see where you're coming from with that. I'd love to hear more from the commission's deliberation. I think it would thin out that profile, and it would also maybe allude to kind of the exposed raptor tails that are on this structure as well. So I think that there are many ways, again, that you can approach this so that it has better alignment and reference to that addition, which is what most of the commission deliberations centered on in the February 18th meeting.
With that sort of detail, Jesse, if we do something like a conditional approval and we say that the eaves be reduced and the clear story window header be reduced, would that be enough to then the applicant could look into this option that I can't quite, I think I'm picturing what you're talking about, Nick, but so I think it works, but that it gives enough leeway for them to address that, and you have enough direction from us as far as what we approve. Does that make sense? Like,
Yes,
how to basically get to that solution of a lower fascia profile and clear story header.
Yes, I understand what you're getting at.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say is that the conditions that are attached to it need to be specific. They can't be just restudy or.
Right,
It
understood.
needs to be really specific so that staff has something to approve and the applicant has something specific to go off of when they're revising their drawings. So as long as the conditions are specific and easily approvable, then yes, you can certainly add a condition that references that angled soffit.
Well, I guess I'm just wondering if we even need to reference it. If we're giving specific direction on the dimensions of the eaves and the clear story header, how they get to that dimension
Doesn't matter.
is up to
Yes.
them.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Correct,
I
yes.
do think that the angled soffit is a kind of unique response, so if that's
Mhm.
something you'd be okay with, you should say so in the conditions, so that we're not left wondering if that's the right.
That's a hard detail.
Yeah, okay.
We can talk about in deliberation, but
The compound miter,
that's a hard thing to do.
it happens all the time.
Okay, I think it sounds like, thank you, Jesse. I think we're ready to move into deliberation. Talking, comments, so let's keep going. What do you all think as far as? We have these at least two broad categories of recommendation from the staff of either denial or approval with conditions, but with the knowledge that the conditions should be specific and actionable. So are there any general thoughts on that? I thought maybe we'd start there.
I guess what I would start with is, I'm a little bit struggling with the conditional approval because of the windows, and it feels a little bit like the applicant would like to maybe study more options than what are really on the table with this conditional approval. I would say that in terms of the windows in general, I do agree with staff that I think the composition of that elevation as it is, I do think that it will be seen largely as an elevational composition from the street. And I think that it does feel kind of jumbled, and it feels like there's just a lot happening there, jumping around different levels. That does feel not subordinate to the main structure. So yeah, that's my feeling. I think the roof one is more sort of straightforward. The windows are hard.
Yeah, better said than my earlier comment. That's exactly the point I was trying to get to, is that there's a lot happening there. It's busy and it does distract, I think, from the main structure.
I'm scared that if we cobble together conditions, that they'd be extensive and hard to interpret staff and the applicant's standpoint. When we're in these situations where, those of us that are designers feel the need to pull out a roll of trace, then I think we're a little far from where we need to be in order to get. That's.
So Nick, does that apply primarily to that west elevation? Is that where you think?
Well,
the struggle
there
is?
and the soffit still, that, the soffit, the fascia, the heaviness of that. The lowering of it helps, but it almost exaggerates the height of it once you lower it and the body of the building gets shorter. That's, my feeling. I mean, it's not that big. It's impactful for this house.
It's dominant.
Yeah.
I feel differently. I think with that kind of shed roof on the front, that it's pretty prominent. I feel that 1'5" with that large shed roof on the front makes it pretty subordinate. And would not be that impactful at 1'5". I don't think the windows are that big of a deal with the clear story and the double hung in the front. I think the water table does quite a bit for it. At the bottom, I think it really kind of brings it together in a really nice way. I think the applicant has done way more than a lot of other applicants do that come before this commission to try to satisfy this commission. So I think that I would approve this, in my opinion, and that we could give some friendly comments instead of doing denial or even conditions. I guess that's just my opinion.
Just a reminder that with 6 of us here, we need 5 to pass a motion. So sounds like I'm hearing so far probably with an understanding that the applicant would like to move forward, but I think some hesitancy on some commissioners' parts to overly prescribe something that still doesn't feel like maybe a full solution, that we would rather deny and give the applicant an opportunity to really kind of pull that together with an understanding of what we're really looking for overall. But we have at least one person who would approve as is. Emily, do you have any, since we haven't heard from you, I thought I'd call you out to.
I think that the first condition, which they're amenable to, is, reasonable with this change of depths and heights. The window placement, I absolutely understand staff's concerns. And I think that the fifth option, which is alluded to, makes sense, which is the reduction of the window to align with the top sash. But my concern is, again, how to get to that writing of the condition in a way that's amenable to both staff and the architect. So I guess I would like to find a way to get to the window placement condition, as long as we can actually do that functionally.
Okay, so let's talk about that option of basically the powder room window, which is the single unit window being lowered in height so that the header meets the header of the double window of the bathroom to the north. And so essentially getting a smaller window, because it won't, the sill won't move down along with it.
That's basically a square that
Right.
aligns.
But otherwise, the paired window remains and the clear story windows remain.
Correct.
Yeah, let's talk about that. How do you all think, those who have spoken so far?
Sounds forced, awkward to me.
Uh-huh.
I'd have to see it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
it's
that-
so
that-
hard.
And I would like to see it with respect
So
to that
seeing that
inside
angle.
corner,
Yeah,
some sort of a rendering.
Is it any of these options?
No.
no,
it's not.
I will say I haven't really talked about my thoughts on it, but because I've generally agreed with what I've heard from Nick and Larry and Emily and Rusty. Again, keeping in mind that we're not seeing that angle and where the historic wall meets the new wall of the addition. But just compositionally, when I see a wall of an addition, I expect it to somehow reference or be able to go along with a composition of a historic wall of window arrangement, et cetera. And so far, especially with the staggered windows, I'm not seeing that, even though I understand the reference to the height and placement of the window on the historic wall. And so I think that same option that we were just talking about with the smaller powder room window, that it would be, so far as I understand it, would seem very jumbled and not have a composition, really.
That's the only.
But that section doesn't really do it justice either, though, does it? Because that's not what you're really gonna see from the street view.
Right, like this is,
That's
again,
more-
this would
that's
be
more
more,
Realistic, right?
but again, you wouldn't, you're also, that powder room window is completely hidden from this view, whereas you would see it just by walking a foot or two to the right.
Right.
So again, the limitations of this orthogonal
So would
depiction.
an option be for us to approve with the elimination of the half bath powder room window and an understanding that they might come back to us on that element alone?
Jesse, do you have any thoughts on that?
I stand by clear conditions. If you're making a condition, knowing that it will likely have to come back to you, it may be cleaner to do denial. But again, if you can come up with clear conditions that are easily implementable, we can accept that. If it's cleaner for you all to recommend denial, we can accept that. If you feel like this is fine as is and you want to approve it, we'll accept that as well.
I mean, You can always approve it with the elimination of that bathroom window. I know that's not a condition that was recommended by staff, but if that is what the commission feels would be the best solution for this project, you can make that a condition of the approval. That doesn't prevent the applicant from redesigning it at a later point and adding it back in some other configuration, and that may come back to the commission again. But you can always approve it with that condition if that is what the commission feels is the best solution for this project.
Okay, thank you. Nick,
I just was gonna make a general comment regarding these situations, and that, you know, there's frustration from the applicant's perspective relative to schedule, and I get that. But the simplest path, in my view, and this is just general advice, is to really listen to staff, because they're there to coach you to, you know, an answer that they can accept, that typically the commission would accept. And to hear their recommendation is denial, and then to come to this group and then expect this group to prescribe a design that is acceptable is inefficient. And I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about that, but my guess is I know how staff feels about that. And so I would just keep that in mind, as it's much more efficient to spend time with staff than it is to continue to come in front of this body.
So I just wanted to elaborate on that. The commission is the deciding body for all applications. We can only recommend applications based on our interpretation of the design guidelines. We have a pretty strict interpretation of the design guidelines. The commission is a body of 9. Of course, there's only 6 of you here today. But you do have the opportunity to discuss applications in a public forum and make decisions based on the intent statements. You know, this one was difficult for us because the commission was very split at the last commission meeting when we were reevaluating this project. So while we are here to definitely help guide applicants through the process, they are more than welcome to bring any project forward to the commission for commission discussion. So more guidance on this application, I think, would be really beneficial because this one was so split last time as well.
I stand by what I said.
Thank you, Brittany. I guess I do want to just insert that I do appreciate the inclusion of the brick sill course and the change in the reveal dimensions of the alternating siding, which I think both of those help quite a bit. So I just want to acknowledge that you know, this has been an improvement, and I think when it comes to, again, this how much effort is being put towards this type of addition. You know, it's a front-facing addition. I think we last spoke about how it's pretty much in the best place it can be. So we don't take issue with that, but because of that, I think it's very appropriate for us to really look at how this, especially western elevation, is presenting to the street. So perhaps maybe drawn out more than usual, but I think very appropriate. Emily, were you going to say something?
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Sure. Yes.
What is your feeling about your presented option 3?
Can you put that back up again? Yeah. So I can make sure I have the right one.
Within the application packet, it was with a clear story continuing on to the house with keeping the double hung.
And removing the single.
The single
powder room.
room. Because, you know, I understand that the desire for light, and I'm just trying to figure out a way, because I do really appreciate just to iterate, the design that you brought forward, I do think really addressed the comments and in a lot of ways successfully, so I'm trying to find a way toward resolution.
I just, in my personal opinion, I just would like to have, because it is a powder room, I need light in there.
Understood.
I like light in my home. And if it could be operational, but keep the consistency, I would be fine with that. Because it is just a powder room. It's not like it's, the double hung is more important to me because that's my master bath.
Are we able to see the option 3? I don't know if it was in the presentation.
Is it this one, the bottom right?
Right.
Yes. So what is your feeling about that option? And that question is also generally to the commission as well.
We could certainly live with that. Yeah.
Does that, you think that
agree,
resolves
but
some of these
yeah, I think
concerns?
that's the most attractive to me.
But it also brings in light, which is
Yeah,
your concern.
So
absolutely,
what's
yeah.
the difference between that one and the one proposed, like on the drawings?
The removal of that,
The one on the left is proposed.
Oh, it's the one behind the column.
Staggered.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I gotcha.
I will say, as someone who has Western clear story windows in bedroom and bathroom, they provide a lot of light. It's lovely. So just first comment there, but yeah, I could live with that.
And
Emily.
would we be able to do conditions clear enough, just saying window placement as seen in option 3? Would that be sufficient for staff?
I believe that's how I have it listed in the application materials. I think that's clear enough.
Clear direction.
Yes.
So yes, if you could support then the approval with conditions as written, basically, which would include that
Yeah.
as an option.
As long as the secondary condition references this option, given the amenability of applicant and also commission.
I can be in support of that. Anybody else?
Yeah, but I was just gonna ask about the staff's recommendation of the fascia heights and the 4 and 1.5, is that?
Keeping that in
Yeah.
the language in there
Is that
as the
what-
condition.
you
I-
guys-
I would like to, but I would, again, like to hear from the rest.
I would support that myself.
And they already said that they would be amenable. 1.5 to 1.2
Reducing one.
Reducing it to 1, 2.
and 6 to 4.
Fixed it, yeah.
The reference.
And if I'm reading the language correctly, actually what we would do, we would remove the second bullet from the conditions. And the third, now second bullet, that eliminating the powder room window on the north corner of the west elevation, but keeping the clear story windows. Well, oh, I see. So we do want to say option 3, because that isn't referencing the moving the clear story windows all the way across the elevation.
Could we instead just say that the applicant like utilizes the window placement in option 3? You know, just
Yeah.
basically
Yes.
remove the last 2 conditions, but create a shorter one.
Just so that I make sure that it's recorded correctly, could we just keep this but extend the clear story windows? That way it's just, it's spelled out very clearly, just in case I don't have it listed as option 3 in the application materials. I just want it to be very clear for the record.
Yeah,
You do as well. It's in the application, but I understand that spelling it out could help.
so
That's why I'm trying to make sure it works for you.
just to make sure we're using language that is clear. It sounds like the second bullet would then read that the applicant eliminate the powder room window on the north corner of the west elevation, comma, extend the clear story windows to the western, further west,
North.
north,
Yeah,
excuse me,
yes.
north, thank you. And retain the paired cottage style windows on the south corner of the west elevation. Does that sound right?
As further illustrated in option
And
3.
as further
Yeah.
illustrated in
Correct.
option 3 of the application.
You saying now you understand.
Yeah.
Brittany's writing it in for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany.
Okay, someone like to, it sounds like 5 of us at least are on board with that condition, approval. Yes,
Yeah, so the base changed, the height came down, the west elevation gets changed.
yes.
And then do people feel one way or another about angling that soffit.
I think it's effective. Yeah, I
think
don't know
that's
if we
something-
need to prescribe that, but I think it's an effective way to reduce that.
I
Yeah.
would also say that you've discussed it in deliberation, so if you wanted to, you could just state the condition as it was, the first condition as it's written,
Right.
and it's been expressed in deliberation.
The implementation would be.
I mean, if we're saying that we're reducing it, it doesn't matter how they do it, right?
Exactly.
It's up to them how they do it, correct?
Well, I'm not sure I'm following all of this. The condition reads that it goes from 1.5 to 1.1 and 6 to 4, right?
It's
It,
one
to
five,
to
one
be
two.
reduced to
Yeah.
1.2 and
Yeah.
the clear story window header be reduced to 4. So it doesn't
Yeah.
give the,
Doesn't say how to do it.
Yeah, that's fine, but my suggestion was that in addition to that, the overall can stay 1.2, but you know, you have a fascia that's maybe 5.5 inches, then you angle the rest back to the house. So that the profile, the part that's facing you is casting much less of a sort of shadow. It's more of a line than, how can I describe it? A slab,
yeah,
more of a line than a slab.
I do understand what you're saying, Nick. I guess I just wondered, the applicant has already said that they're okay with reducing it. And you're
a
looking to
further
get a
suggestion.
smaller.
Further,
I understand,
Yeah.
but I guess I'm just wondering. It seems to overcomplicate it, but
Well, is it something that if they decided to consider that they could implement with our conditional approval of just the dimensions?
so 1'2" or less.
Or just,
Yeah,
no,
maximum
1'2", but, or, yeah, I guess that solves it.
I think it would be an improvement, but
Yeah.
yeah, complicated to get to.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the easiest way to state it.
So the eaves be reduced to 1'2" or less, and the clear story window header be reduced to 4 inches.
Yeah, I can support that.
Okay.
Can't read it, but I can.
Does anyone feel confident that they could?
Give it a try.
Okay. So the vocabulary. We'll be ready to make friendly amendments.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I move,
I think Brittany.
Brittany wrote it up on the
Yeah.
screen.
oh, look at this. All right, then I definitely feel confident. All right, I move to approve with conditions, application number 2025-COA-026 for the addition, window alterations, and pergola at 324 North Corona Street as per design guidelines 3.1, 3.2, 3.4, 3.7 through 3.10. Character defining features for the Alamo Placida Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. One, that the addition eaves be reduced to 1'2" or less height, and the clear story window header be reduced to 4 inches in height. Two, that the applicant eliminate the powder room window on the north corner of the west elevation, but extend the clear story windows to the north and retain the paired cottage style windows on the south corner of the west elevation as further illustrated in option 3.
Thank you, Larry. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Chris, thank you for seconding. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Hope that's a satisfactory.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, who just seconded.
Chris,
For a second, thank you.
right, I believe that concludes our design review agenda, and then we just have business items of electing our chair for the coming year and vice chair. I just did by introducing that. So any questions on that?
I'd like to congratulate the commission for staying with it.
Yeah.
Kind of fun.
Yeah,
aspect of this, you
I
know.
like
Yes.
this for the dialogue amongst us versus just telling
Thought that
our
was gonna be
opinions.
5 minutes, it turned into an hour.
We have the times. Okay, so I guess, do we have nominations for chair and vice chair for the coming year? Is that what we need to do next?
Yeah, and maybe you all want to speak to whether you're interested or not
Yes,
interested, and then let others
absolutely.
make a nomination.
Yeah, and you do need to make a motion and vote on this.
Yes.
You can combine it into one, or you can do two separate motions depending on how you feel about it.
Campaign speeches, maybe.
Nominate Erica for chair if she's amenable.
Yes.
Agreed. Fantastic job.
Oh, thanks. I felt on top of it today. Ooh, yeah, that would be great. I would be
Thanks.
happy to. Anyone interested in vice chair?
Larry.
I should be, yeah, all right with doing that since I feel like, I think I'm the
Yeah.
next longest serving person
I
here.
think that's right.
Wow, great.
Yeah, there you go.
Crazy.
Okay, so it sounds like. Unless anyone else wants to, okay. Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that for Erica's appointment as chair and Larry as vice chair.
Thank you, Emily. Do you have a second? Steve,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
And sorry, I didn't hear who seconded that.
Rusty.
Okay, thank you.
And you did do a beautiful job today. Thank you so much. And Brittany and I were emailing that we do actually have like a tip sheet that we can give you as the officers of the board, just because it does get tricky to remember everything. And so we'll help you out there.
Great. Yeah.
Are we ever gonna change having to read the instructions in front of?
Enjoy that. I try to like not do it letter by letter, but.
I know,
it's
but
very-
I mean, I had suggested earlier that it be recorded. You just press a button and or, it just all gets done at the beginning, or, if there's a way around that. Yeah, I've been in other municipalities and it's just not so cumbersome. The legalese as it relates to, I just want to simplify it for you and I want to simplify it for everybody. It's just short.
Yeah.
We may need to think about just making sure that people who have different ways to experience the meeting are getting the message if it's not
Right.
stated.
Well, I think the instructions regard all the COVID related stuff, you gotta do, right? That everybody's on Zoom or whatever, you gotta give all those instructions. It's just the ones about, the
Process,
rules of the
yeah.
road in the meeting and all that.
I just am suggesting if someone were attending the meeting who is visually impaired, it helps them to hear it read. So, we can talk to the attorney's office about how we need to approach that. There's probably a lot of ways we could do this.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. All right, I'm going to close the meeting at 2:16.
Bye, everybody.
Hi, how are
Feel
you
better,
doing?
Brittany.
I'm okay. I'm, I still can't bend my knee really too much, and walking on crutches and everything. I had my first PT yesterday and that was pretty brutal.
Oh, well, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you.
Thank y'all.